Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It's a Woman Wednesday here on Liquid Lunch. Thank you so much for joining us here. I'm Fernando Uribe, filling in for the great John Tobacco. Once again, here on Liquid Lunch. Don't forget to like Liquid Lunch on Facebook, folks, and of course, follow it on Instagram and Twitter. Some news of the day here. I think something that'll definitely get you interested. As we all know, 19 days to go until Election Day. And a great article in Politico I came across today that really, I think, best summarizes the 8 states that are going to decide the election coming up on November the 3rd. And as we all know, certainly early voting has happened in many states. And as we all know, for example, here in New Jersey, Governor Phil Murphy decided to engage in a vote by mail process here, which I think we all know could be outright disastrous, if not full of chicanery. But again, because of COVID-19, the governor has chosen to do that here in New Jersey, and a couple of other states as well have looked to do a vote by mail process. But I'm looking at some states here, ladies and gentlemen, and the electoral map. And listen, I'm talking about 8 states right now that I think could ultimately decide this election. And let me just run the states by you here and their electoral votes, because when we talk about the 270 that's needed, listen, unless there's some sort of miracle or some overwhelming silent majority that shows up at the polls, we know that New York and California, respectively, between the 55 votes in California and approximately, I think, the 30 votes in New York. I mean, Joe Biden already has 85 votes in, total votes in the bag. But look at these numbers, and that should just sort of awaken you a little bit as to what awaits us on election night and how these states are so pivotal. For example, Arizona has 11 electoral votes, ladies and gentlemen. We've been seeing recent polling almost dead even there in Arizona. Now, mind you, I'm not a big fan of the polls. I think we all learned about how unreliable they were in 2016, and most likely, hey, listen, they're going to be unreliable in 2020. All right. Have you seen the president's rallies in recent weeks, even before COVID and even now after COVID? Ladies and gentlemen, we're seeing thousands upon thousands of people showing up for the president's rallies. And if you look at any events that Joe Biden's been doing, I mean, short of the Secret Service and media that's there's an overwhelming amount of people. So when I hear, all the liberals on cable news, and I hear all of these activists or pop culture or those in Hollywood saying that Joe Biden has this overwhelming support, where's it coming from? I don't get it. It's astounding to me that they're trying to pull the wool over our eyes again, as he did in 2016. It didn't work, and I don't think it's going to work in 2020 again. So, for example, let's move on to Florida. We're looking at 29 electoral votes there. And here's a number that should really stand out, folks, about the state of Florida. And it's the idea that new voter registrations have been overwhelmingly positive for the Republican Party. There have been new registered Republicans in that state. And despite Michael Bloomberg and, of course, the Florida State Legislature allowing former convicted felons to vote, the reality is that I think a lot of Floridians are looking at that state as possibly the decider coming up on November the 3rd. So it's definitely one to look out for. Also, ladies and gentlemen, the 16 electoral votes in Georgia are one to watch out for. I mean, that's been reliably read for many, many presidential cycles. But as we all know, whether it's been like the ridiculous campaign of Stacey Abrams when she ran for governor, which I have no idea how that woman even got a single vote, because, I mean, I think it was more hype by the liberal media. But believe it or not, there are sections of Georgia that are progressively very blue. So I think it's definitely something to keep an eye out for, as Republicans have held Georgia for many cycles. Also, folks, a state that the president won as well in 2016 was Michigan. And those 16 electoral votes, I think, are very pivotal for the president's reelection chances, as well as look at Minnesota. Now, Minnesota has gone blue, folks. And since, if I'm not mistaken correctly, since 1980, okay? I mean, that's how long the state of Minnesota, okay, the state of, 10,000 lakes has gone blue. But you know what? As we've seen in recent weeks, Minneapolis has been an outright disaster with a liberal mayor, a liberal governor. Again, they don't believe in law and order. And we're seeing how much of a hellhole states like Minnesota have become, cities like Minneapolis. Again, folks, listen, this is not hyperbolic on my part by any means. But we're seeing it, folks. It's the eye test. It's seeing all of these blue cities in this country run by Democrats and specifically liberals. New York City, St. Louis, Philadelphia, Cleveland, Atlanta, okay, Detroit, Flint, Oakland, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Portland, Seattle. All right, these are disaster cities. And what do they all have in common? They're run by liberals. What don't people get about that? And this is where the liberal media thinks that you're stupid. And hopefully, you know what? At least I know this audience is a very smart audience, which is why the traffic is so high, and which is why I know you trust John Tobacco, because guess what, folks? We're not lying to you here on Liquid Lunch, but the optics are there. Okay, looking at North Carolina, for example, 15 electoral votes, very crucial state that went for the president in 2016. It should go again in 2020. Pennsylvania's 20 electoral votes are also up for grabs. That state also went for the president in 2016, as well as Wisconsin's 10 electoral votes. Let me tell you, this is something we have to keep an eye on, because without a doubt, ladies and gentlemen, getting to 270 is going to be a challenge for the president and certainly for Joe Biden. I know the liberal media will have you believe that polling is all overwhelming for Joe Biden, that for whatever reason, Joe Biden's going to win this in a walk. Folks, don't get fooled by that. Okay, the liberal media is trying to do what they did in 2016 by trying to, again, disguise this as this sort of overwhelming momentum like they did for Hillary Clinton. And we all know it fell flat. Okay, there was so much egg on every liberal's face in 2016. And you know what? There's going to be a lot of egg on liberals' faces in 2020. Because again, it's that silent majority, folks, that, you know what? They may not be posting on social media. They may not be posting lawn signs, okay, in front of their homes. But you know what? There are people quietly in the dining room table or in the living room that talk to their family members and say, you know what? I don't like the president's demeanor sometimes. I don't like his decorum. But my God, look at the opposite side. Look at Joe Biden, who cognitively doesn't know where he is. And you have Kamala Harris, a power-hungry, vile woman who will do anything, okay, to succeed to the presidency. And that's the choice, folks, on November 3rd. And if you don't think that scares you, it should. Never mind the fact her voting record is atrocious, but Kamala Harris is just one of many liberal women serving right now in government that are dangerous, that they're power hungry, and that they're just vile, okay? And that's not being bombastic, that's not being misogynist, that's being truthful, okay? And we're all about truth here on Liquid Lunch. So, again, those 8 states, folks, are definitely ones to keep an eye out for. So all I can say to you, ladies and gentlemen, is if you're registered to vote, please turn out on November the 3rd. Listen, the president isn't perfect, but let me tell you, you know what's far from perfect? The Democratic Party, led by Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. So again, keep an eye out, folks, as those 8 states coming up on November 3rd will ultimately decide this election coming up in 2020. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're coming up at the top of the hour here. Great guest coming up in hour 2. Don't go anywhere. It's a Woman Wednesday right here on A Liquid Lunch. I'm Fernando Uribe, filling in for the great John Tobacco here. Again, you watch us on Biz TV and also Facebook Live. We'll be right back right after these brief words.